Hi YouTube, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can find me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. Okay, so the last video that I haven't uploaded yet, we took this silicon carbide stone. We think it's a Norton. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. All I know is it was really nasty when I picked it up off of eBay, but I think I gave like $4 for it, because I think I got this one. I think I got this one and another one and a sharpening steel and something else. I think total shipped was like $13 or something like that, right? Okay, so we took it and we did the scratch patterns on a chunk of 1095 right out of the box, nasty with the copper patina on it also. Then we cleaned it up with a Norton rubbing stone, one of these things. We got a little flat area around the outside that not only was it flat, but it was also had a couple of layers of grime and old particles stripped off, and we did a scratch pattern on that to see how sharp the abrasive that's left behind is. Okay, so now what we're going to do, how about let's try the diamond stone. Okay, we've got a diamond stone over there from Harbor Freight. It's got 200, 400, 300, and 600 grits on it. Let's go ahead and attack it with this for a little bit. We'll get it a little bit flatter, and then we'll see what the surface looks like after this underneath the microscope. And actually, just in case somebody comes in late to the series, let's go ahead and take a look at the surface before the diamond plate on this particular video also. Okay. Okay, so that is the center of the stone. Right around in here, that has not been touched by the rubbing block. You can see how you can just barely start to see the tips of the particles that are still attached to the stone underneath this mat of old steel particles, broken down silicon carbide, old oil. Like I said, this had copper streaks on it, like somebody had been rubbing a penny on it. Household dust, just a whole bunch of trash, right? Okay, so this didn't cut very well. Now, this is the surface that was left behind after we used that. Okay, now remember, this has got the cuts and everything in it, and it's a nice coarse stone, but it doesn't have anything loose, you know, that'll float around and really abrade quickly. Okay, so on this one you can see how our mat of trash is gone. Okay, but remember how in that first video when I said if you look down on an edge and you see light reflecting back at you, that means it's dull. Okay, you see all these spots where you've got light reflecting back at you, and it sure looks to me like the surface of the stone is still fairly dull. And the sound of the knife that we sharpened on just the corner of this stone that was freshened up like this, that agreed with me. It was that it sounded like it was sharper and it was cutting better, but it still wasn't sharp and cutting good the way it should be. So let's take this stone. We got our Harbor Freight stone. We got this stone. Let's go with our 200 grit side. Yep, our 200 grit side. Start a little bit of water. So the water is going to be to flush the particles away. Okay. Let's come back up here and see what kind of surface we've got. Okay, well, first of all, we'll look at it in person here. If I get it tilted, there, you can kind of see the flat spots around the edges, and the center spot has still got all the water in it. That center spot is a spot that hasn't been touched yet, and then these edges have been. Okay, so I'm pretty sure, yeah, that's right in where the water stone was getting it, or the diamond stone. I wonder if there's just too much water in there still. Yeah, that didn't help any at all. Okay, so it's, you know, if anything, I think we went backwards. You know, it could be a mix of the mineral oil and the water, but you know, it looks to me like we've got more trash in between. Let's rinse it off again. Okay, so all I did was just rinse it off. Wow, that's kind of cool, watching all that water flow in between them. Yeah, it still kind of sort of looks to me like we're going backwards. Like the diamond dulled it a little bit more. But to be fair, let's go ahead and we'll put a we'll do a scratch pattern test on this one also. Okay, so right up in here, now that flat section, no, that's what we used with the other one. We'll go in that flat section up here, and I'll just change the stroke a little bit just to kind of keep it even. So we go some mineral oil. Yeah, that doesn't, let's get you up here to where you can get a close-up and you're listening here. See, that doesn't, okay, that feels like it's glazed, okay, like I'm just, like the knife is just slipping over the tops and it's not actually cutting, and it also sounds like it's doing the same thing. Okay, oh, sorry about that. So let's double check and take a look at our scratch pattern. That's the surface of our bowling ball. Yeah, see, we can compare that to our rubbing stone one. And even though they're both not quite in focus at the same time, you can see, look at all these big aggressive scratches on the rubbing stone one, you know, right after we'd conditioned that stone with the rubbing stone. You got all these real nice aggressive scratches, and up here you've got, you know, a much finer scratch pattern. Okay, so the diamond stone didn't work so well this time. You know, and this an awful lot of this could get, you know, I mean, if you were to do this test 5 times with each one of them, it might change the outcome a little bit. So on this one we're going to write diamond, and we're going to write 200. You know, heck, it could be that diamond surface is wore out, you know, but to do all this 5 times each with each different method, all on camera, we'd be here a long time. Okay, so our next one, let's go with the sandpaper. Okay, and we'll go with the 80 grit. Like I said, I believe this, well, it's 3M Pro Grade Precision, made in Canada. You know, I don't know. I want to say this is some sort of like a ceramic type sandpaper. I got it at Home Depot. Usually I keep this around for flattening the inside of handle scales. Okay, so we got some water on there. That's the coarse side. And actually, look at that. That's actually not doing bad. All that gray, that's all bits and pieces of stone. Okay, now what I'm feeling for here is to see how far the sandpaper has been abraded. And you know, it's still, I mean, it's knocked about half the sharpness off. You know, and that stone feels pretty good. So let's rinse it off and then get it up underneath the scope and see what we see. We are starting to get an awful lot more flat areas. Oh yeah, look at that. Now that's starting to get like what I'm talking about. Okay, it's, you know, and I could have swore that I tried regular sandpaper, you know, a long time ago, and it really didn't do much of anything. And it might have been that I was trying, you know, maybe I was using a stone with a tougher bond, like a fine India or an Arkansas stone or something like that. But this is starting to get there. Okay, so now, you know, still hardly any trash in between our shards, but now the shards are starting to look a lot sharper. See, like that one right there. If I can get this closer. This one right here. See how that one's got a lot of really nice sharp edges on it? Now it's laying down, not facing right up, but this one right here is facing up at a slightly higher angle, and it's got an awful lot of nice sharp pieces on it. Yeah, so this is going to start, when we do our scratch pattern test on this, it's going to come out a lot better. So let's move that out of the way. that is really exciting to me because, you know, the silicon carbide and the plate glass, you know, I can see a lot of folks going, you know, that's an awful or too much trouble. A piece of coarse sandpaper and a granite tile, I can see people liking to use that better. Okay, so let's get you stopped or set up there. Okay, now I bet you this is going to sound and feel really nice. Oh, and it does. You hear that nice aggressive sound to it? I mean, it can get a little bit better, but boy, that is night and day compared to dirty with the WD-40 or with the diamond plate. Okay, let's look at that scratch pattern. Let's bring y'all back up here. There we go. Look at those big, beautiful. Heck, that almost looks like somebody took a gouge and, you know, cut that big old ribbon of steel out of the side of that edge. That looks way, way nicer. That's what we're getting to. And it could be also that that is 80 grit paper instead of like a 220 grit paper, you know. Now, the side of this stone, you know, I want to say the coarse side on this is supposed to be like 80 or 120 grit, something like that. So, just for completeness, let's go ahead and run the same thing, the granite plate, but instead of the 80 grit paper, let's throw down some 220 grit silicon carbide. You still in view? Yeah. Now, to be fair, on the coarse side of the stones that I normally use, I only finish the coarse side with the 60-90. I don't take it down to the 220. Okay, we've knocked that paper down by about half. Let's rinse it off and take a look and see where we're at. And before we're going to label this 80 paper. That still doesn't look too bad either. Yeah, let's go ahead. I wasn't thinking about doing this, but let's go ahead and do a 220 grit scratch pattern. Okay, so I put more oil in here, and actually let's we're starting to run kind of low on knives, I think. Yeah, so let's just do okay, so on this one we got 80 grit paper down here, so let's run it up here. Now right off the bat, you know, that might have looked okay underneath the microscope, but it's not. It's not making that same sound, and the feedback on the stone is not there. I mean, it's better than the diamond, but it's not something that I would say, hey, that's nice. You know, the scratch pattern isn't bad, but it's not near as deep as with the 80 grit. And like I said, it didn't feel very good either. But we'll go ahead and we'll have it here anyway. So 220. So this blade's got 80 grit paper and 220 grit paper on it. Okay. So now, let's see. All right. So now let's do, because these last two, remember we've got the files left, and then we've got the cinder block, regular and with sand. And then we've got silicon carbide left to go. So let's go ahead and do just the file. This was what I found was the most efficient and easiest way to do it back before I found silicon carbide, okay? And what you do is it's still a good way if you have a stone that's really dished out, you know, and you don't have a lot of silicon carbide, or you don't have a lot of plate glass or something like that, because the plate glass does wear. You know, the file you can use, you know, to knock the ends down, you know, and get it kind of ready to go onto the plate glass and the silicon carbide. All right, so what we're going to do here is we'll do half and half. So we're going to do this half up here with the coarse file and the fine file underneath. So pretty much you just take the corner of an old worn out file that won't cut steel very well anymore, and you scrape it. See how that's just cutting the ever-living crap out of it? And then I always found that it was better to do this after a sharpening session. It was kind of like the mineral oil softened everything up, you know, softened that binder up so that it actually cut a little bit better. Okay, so that side's going to be a coarse file. And that side's a fine file. Okay, let's wash it off. And the camera timed out. Okay, that's a spot that hasn't been touched by anything yet. Where's the end of it? There's the end. Okay. So still, doesn't look like there's any trash. I honestly think that we're about where we were with the 80 grit paper. That's kind of what it looks like to me. Maybe a little bit less. You know, it's kind of tough to tell because we're looking at different sections of the stones. But still, this right here looks really good. This does. These look like they're laying flat or they have been dulled. So that's with the coarse file. Here's with the fine file. And I really can't tell that I can see the difference between the coarse and the fine files. So let's see if scratch pattern will tell us. There we go. So we'll oil up this end and oil up this end. We'll take this one knife and then we'll do the same thing that we did with the paper with this. We'll go coarse back here and fine up here. The battery's about, oh yeah, the battery's giving up on the microscope, or the camera on the microscope. I got another one though. Okay, so the coarse file. You know, that feels pretty good. It sounds pretty good also. Okay, now we'll go to the fine file. Now that feels better than what the coarse file section did. I think it sounds about the same. Yeah, that feels pretty good. Okay, let's wipe it off. We're going to have to get a new, well, maybe we'll have just enough camera or battery left to will it? No, it's not gonna. Okay, so we got the extra battery. Everything always works good until the battery dies, huh? Okay. Okay, there's our scratch pattern with dressed with the coarse file. You know, I mean, it's got some nice deep gouges in there. But honestly, it doesn't look all that impressive either. Not like what the rubbing stone or the 80 grit sandpaper did, which is kind of surprising, I think. And then up in here we have the fine file, where we use the fine file to scratch it off, and that looks, you know, comparable, I think, to the rubbing stone or the 80 grit sandpaper. You know, but like I said, that could be the difference in, you know, how I was holding the file. Like I said, usually when I did the file thing, that was after it already been, you know, I'd already done like a sharpening session, like I'd already sharpened like 10-15 knives, and it had that mineral oil on it the whole time. And I really wonder if that mineral oil, if it was softening up the binder also at the same time. So anyway, so let's go ahead and label these. Course file. We'll just put file on the middle and then fine. We'll put those down, and then we are right at 30 minutes again, so we're going to go ahead and shut you off, and the next video is going to be the exciting one. Okay, so the next video we're going to play with the cinder block, and the cinder block with the coarse sand, and then we're going to play with the silicon carbide, the stuff I normally use, and then the rock polishing stuff, and the plate glass. And we'll get to we'll go ahead and finish wrapping this part of this series up. So again, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery, and visit me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. I hope you enjoyed the video, and stay tuned for the next one.